No one in NHL history has been suspended more times than Brad Marchand. It's cost him over the length of his career almost $1.5 million. And now the Boston Bruins, one of the most storied franchises in NHL history, just handed him the C. To discuss that, here's Bryan Hayes. Hazer, thumbs up or thumbs down on Marchand getting the C?
Oh, I don't do this often, Gino, but a double thumbs up. You can post that. That's meme material immediately. Who throws up a double thumbs up without understanding people are going to carve them for how goofy that looks? But I love this play for Boston because now that Lucic is back, you have two guys in the room that remember what it's like to actually win a Stanley Cup or get to a Cup final. Brad Marchand is representing what Patrice Bergeron did for a long time, Krejci did for a long time, and Zdeno Chara did before. Boston needs to hold on to past glory. Last year, they put forth the greatest regular season in NHL history. Brad Marchand was a huge part of it. All he knows is what it means to be a Boston Bruin. I think it's the perfect choice.
You're talking about the past history, so I want to follow up on that. So Ray Bourque, Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, Patrice Bergeron, all had the C for the Boston Bruins. The message to the room was clear. Here's the guy we consider one of our best leaders. Do what he does, and you'll be good. Is that really what you're going to tell the young guys going to that room right now? Guys, what we want you to do is to be like Brad Marchand.
Yes, absolutely. Because you know what he does? He wins and he performs. And even though he's into his mid to late 30s, he's still arguably one of the most in-shape players in the NHL. It's not just about the transgressions on the ice. And I understand what you're saying, Gino. He's got a long rap sheet. He's done a lot of stupid things on the ice over the course of his career.
Hold on, let me jump off that. You said stupid things.
Yes.
And that's where I take issue with this, Bryan. It's not his work ethic. It's not his desire. It's the fact that sometimes the screw comes a little bit loose. And in fairness, he would tell you, it's playing on the edge that makes him what he is. But can you really tell the young guys coming in your room that's exactly what we want from you as well?
Well, obviously you don't want guys getting suspended 8 times over the course of their career. But you know who had the record of suspensions prior to Marchand? Chris Pronger. I'd say he was a pretty good captain. He was a pretty good winner, and he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Mark Messier wasn't a clean player. He's arguably the greatest captain of all time, or one of them. Gordie Howe was not clean, right? So what was it about those players that you could look up to? The fact that they showed up to play every single night, that they played with intensity, they played with energy, they loved their team, they loved their city, and they work hard. Brad Marchand, it's not only about what he's doing on the ice. I have heard for years in Boston that is the team that is in the best shape of any team in the NHL. And it started with Chara, and then it was passed down to Bergeron, and Marchand was riding shotgun the whole way. My understanding is in the room, kids will look up to Brad Marchand and say, I can't believe that guy's already on the bike. I can't believe that guy's putting in more work after practice. That has more to do with the leadership than 8 suspensions over the course of a long career.
I can't argue with any of that because I think he's one of the premier players in the NHL. There's no doubt about that. I love what he's able to do. You know, you can hate him, but you love what he's able to do. What about from his perspective? Do you run the risk of him changing his mindset at all when you say, Brad, you're now our leader, you're now wearing the C? Are you worried that it might take any edge off his own personal style of game?
I certainly hope not. I don't get the impression like Montgomery and company in Boston would think that, because it's been a leadership by committee for quite some time with Bergeron, with Krejci. I think the fact that Lucic is back, albeit with new surroundings, new players in the room, Lucic is going to step in there and help him immensely right off the bat. I think there might be pressure on Marchand, and I'm sure he will feel pressure, Gino, to make sure that this is not a sinking ship in Boston, right? This is the first year without Bergeron, the first year without Krejci. Other players have moved on. There's no way they're going to meet what they put forth last year. As we've stated, that was a historic regular season. But as much as you remember the regular season, you also remember what happened when they were up 3-1 against the Florida Panthers and they fell apart. That was a choke job. Yeah. And now there's pressure on Marchand to be the leader of a team that still has eternal or internal high expectations to keep pushing them forward. So I wouldn't worry about the edge. I would possibly worry about the pressure, because I think there's a lot of pressure on Brad Marchand to continue to push forward what Bergeron did for a long time and what Chara did before that.
Now, let me follow up on the pressure thing. Now you're in the playoffs. Let's take the Boston Bruins projected down the road. They're in the playoffs. Suddenly they're in trouble in a game. You're between the second and the third period. You need somebody to step up and speak in front of the team. Is he the guy? Because ordinarily Marchand just leads by example and is not much of a talker in the room. You mentioned Mark Messier. He would stand up in front of the room and talk. Chris Pronger would stand up and rip guys in the room and talk and say whatever he said. Would you be counting on Brad Marchand to do that, or is there somebody else in the room that could step up and be that voice between periods when a team needs some motivation?
If that's not who he is, then I wouldn't expect it to change now. I don't think you can ask Brad Marchand this deep into his career, regardless of what letters on his sweater, to change his disposition and his approach to interacting with teammates during the game. There are different types of leaders over the course of this game. You referenced a couple of guys who were rah-rah guys who would, put the players to the gauntlet, would make guarantees, would push players. But there's also a long list of great captains who are really quiet. Steve Yzerman always had that reputation. Yzerman didn't stand up and yell and scream at guys. As long as Brad Marchand is playing on his toes and on the edge of the bench and ready to jump over there in the biggest moments, that's leadership. And I think that's what, players in the Bruins dressing room will look up to more than anything else. There can be other guys who could be rah-rah. Maybe it is Lucic. Maybe it's McAvoy. Maybe it's Pasternak. They have veterans on that team and very good players on that team. They can lend a voice if need be. I think with Marchand, it's more about continuing to be a great player and to continue to really personify what the Boston Bruins are all about, because this is not a captaincy anointment that is for the benefit of the 31 other markets, right? He's one of the most polarizing players in the league. He's one of the most hated players in the league. Let's call it what it is. But why do they care in Boston? If anything, that's going to add points to his reputation. They love him there, and I expect him to handle this pressure well. I expect him to continue to be a very good Boston Bruin. And again, I think it's the right call. And I'm really curious to see what the Bruins bring to the table this year.
You know what I'm curious to see, Hazer? And this is going to happen. It's only a matter of time this happens. Something controversial happens on the ice. Brad Marchand skates right towards the referee, and the referee says, no, I'm not talking to you. I want to talk to you, captain. And he goes, I am the captain. You have to talk to me.
That's
what
right.
do you think that's going to be like for the officials?
You know it's coming. You know the refs know it's coming. You know the league office understands, who he is, what his reputation is. With the media, like he's never been shy, right? He's one of the great follows on Twitter.
Oh, awesome.
And I am curious, how he approaches that. I hope he doesn't change. I can't imagine the organization would ask him to change, but it's a big responsibility, right? He's following in the footsteps of some of the great players of all time and certainly some of the great Bruins of all time. So it is a big responsibility. It's an original six team. It's a hockey town. It's a big sports town in Boston. And I'm sure he's embracing it. I'm sure Brad Marchand is honored by this appointment, and I think he should be. But I hope the edgy, borderline offside personality that is Brad Marchand continues to exist.
We all hope so. This is going to be a lot of fun.